Welcome to Just Talk Funerals with me, Jason Threadgold.
And me, Nicola Threadgold.
Just Talk Funerals is all about the funeral industry, the people that work alongside us, and an insight into what we do.
We will have some special guests along the way, sharing their experiences and how their professions overlap with what we do.
So get yourselves comfy, grab yourselves a cuppa, and let's get into today's episode of
Just Talk Funerals. Hello and welcome back to Just Talk Funerals. Today Jason and I are going to be talking about direct cremation. I think this is a subject that is very much in the headlines at the moment. And I think we're going to split this down a little bit and talk about direct cremation in lots of other ways in other episodes as well, aren't we?
Definitely so. There's a lot to talk about.
Yeah. But for today, we're going to be talking about direct cremation where it's actually an unattended cremation. That's right, isn't it? So what is a direct cremation? I mean, we're talking here of no particular service as such, no funeral service. There's no ceremony, no people around. So that's, it's very much something that's been embodied since COVID, hasn't it, really?
Yeah, I mean, it was always a thing, but it was sort of highlighted and became more of a thing during COVID because of restrictions that were put in place about how many people could attend a funeral. Yeah. Then it really made people look at, well, what's the point of a funeral in some cases? If we can't go, we need to celebrate in another way. Yeah. So, it certainly opened people's eyes to the opportunity of what's called a direct cremation. Yeah.
And I think the three words we hear a lot are it's simpler, it's faster, and it's cheaper.
Okay. So the couple of elements probably okay there. The bit in the middle you mentioned about faster, it's not always the case. We've still got the restrictions, like when anybody passes away, we have the new medical examiner now for the UK that oversees things. And I'm not saying it slowed it down a lot, but it slowed it down a little bit, just by a couple of 3 days maybe. But certainly it's not made by having a direct service, it's not made it any quicker. It's just a different type of service.
Yeah. And I think, as well, the people's understandings are that, it's the funeral is taken place and, we collect the ashes at the end, and you're cutting out all of that other in between.
Yes, there's no formal ceremony.
No.
And there's a marked difference between one provider to another. I mean, you'll all probably know if you've watched any daytime TV, there's companies on there that are advertising this kind of facility and spending an awful lot on advertising, trying to sort of corner the market on direct services. I mean, that is their business, that's their way of marketing, and if you're comfortable with that, that's fine. All we would say is just look at exactly what you're getting. So go through your T's and C's and see specifically what you're going to be getting, because by using a funeral director for a direct service as opposed to a TV advertising company, then you're going to get an awful lot more for probably about the same money anyway.
Yeah.
Should we talk a little bit more about how we differ from in what we do to one company against another?
I think so, yeah.
Okay, so a direct service, people depict this as wherever the person passes away, they're picked up, they're taken to a crematorium, and then at some point you get the ashes back later. That's how it's sold to them. Yeah. Which is fine if that's what you want, but we would rather embellish that just a little bit, just because we're conscious that people's way of dealing with the death and their mindset and the process that perhaps needs to be followed.
And I think the closure, isn't it?
Closure is definitely an element there. It would be better for everybody involved if they could just see something or do something. So we choose to. I know a lot of providers will say we do nothing, we pick somebody up, we put them in a coffin, we cremate them and don't even touch them, don't give them last offices, which is like getting them dressed or ready for a service. We would still prefer to go through that. So we'd rather somebody be in their own clothes or in a gown, just for their own dignity, really. And we would always offer up the facility where somebody could come and visit them. Because I think that's a key thing. Robbing somebody of that opportunity for whatever reason you're doing this type of service, it's just going to play with your mind, and your mind's going to play tricks with you.
Yeah.
And we know full well that we're just waiting for this snowball effect to roll down this hill where mental health is going to become a thing when it comes to direct funeral services.
Yeah, and I think already there is proven data around that from COVID, isn't there, where people haven't had that closure and mentally how that has affected them. And I think for us, it's about people talking, isn't it, and communicating with people around what sort of funeral they maybe want. And as much as somebody that's passed away, maybe their wishes were that they wanted a direct cremation. It's what about those that are left behind? And we're not just talking about immediate family, it's grandchildren and even friends. All of a sudden that person has gone and they've had no closure for that. And I know with my own parents, they've had people, that they've known for many years, and all of a sudden they've not been able to attend that person's funeral, and it does leave them sort of hanging a little bit.
Yeah, what we're finding is, well, a lot of the people that are buying these plans where it will be a direct service and they've bought it in advance, they think they're doing the family a favour.
Yeah.
They really do, by saying, take away the burden, take away the trouble and everything.
Yeah.
It's good in one sense because they're forward thinking and they're thinking of what the family would be like. But we're finding a lot where people are not having these conversations with the families or the friends.
Yeah.
And we've had numerous occasions where people have come to us where perhaps the parents have pre-purchased something like this, not understanding what you're getting for your money.
Yeah.
And they're absolutely mortified that I need to celebrate my mum or my dad or whatever relative it is.
Yeah.
And we need to get together as a family and lean on each other.
Yeah.
Because just to allow that person's body to be taken away and at some point at a later date you just get the ashes back, it just doesn't sit right with them. And they need a little bit more. And bringing communities together, I think it is a key thing in this.
Yeah, and I think it's important for us to say that we don't feel more obliged to directs or to traditional funerals, do we? I think it's about people understanding what is right for them and their families. Because, we do a direct funeral, don't we?
Yeah, and it makes up about 20% of the funeral market now, if you want to call it a market.
Yeah.
1 in 5 funerals now will be a direct funeral, whether that be with a third-party provider or with a funeral director.
Yeah.
And every crematorium around, whether they're council-owned or private-owned, they have a facility for this, so it's a discounted price. They usually happen either early in the morning or late on in the afternoon, where them key times are not being used so much. They can utilise them for direct funeral services as well.
Yeah. But I think, like you say, if you're using your own funeral director for a direct funeral, it means that there are possibilities for you to be able to see your loved one, to have them dressed. That's the sort of stance we take on it, and I'm sure there are other funeral directors within the UK that do have that, rather than your deceased being taken away and cremated somewhere else. There is that advantage of using your local funeral director.
And the other thing is you'll know everything that's going on at every point, so you're not going to be left in limbo not knowing where your loved one is when the cremation's taking place. We would always make you aware which crematorium and give you the choice of crematorium and what time and what date it's happening, so you could just spend a moment yourself thinking your own thoughts, or even you could come and witness us leaving to go to the crematorium. There's lots of ways you can expand on it without there being a cost implication to it.
Which again is helping and aiding with that closure, isn't it? Yeah, definitely.
So for me, the question to you is why do you think it's becoming more popular? Is it because of affordability, or what reason do you think it is?
I think there's lots of reasons, and maybe the biggest one maybe is the financial side. As we know, funeral costs have gone up over the years, and that isn't usually down to the funeral director, as you know, and we hear a lot, don't we, where people say, "Oh, funeral directors, they're making a lot of money because they're charging this." Well, actually, our charges are usually leaned on the fact that the local authority are putting their charges up when it comes to burial ground and cremations. You know, our fees are quite minimal in terms of the rest of, you know, what we have in, you know, within those fees, aren't they?
Yeah, and it wouldn't take a lot to look at an estimate for a funeral anyway.
No.
And there's a breakdown on there showing you what's charged where.
Yeah.
Third-party cost disbursements, call them what you will.
Yeah, exactly.
They'll be on there, so you'll be able to see if you were looking on there and get a comparison.
Yeah.
We always say get a comparison. If it's definitely down the money side and you're on a budget, talk to your funeral director. There's clever ways you can manoeuvre around things but still get the same type of service.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think, you know, some people will say as well that, you know, around a direct, I think like you've already said, you know, when that person was alive, they've probably said, "Oh, I don't want my funeral to be a burden to you, you know, just you know, use a direct, give the children, the grandchildren the money, you know, so, and financially, isn't there, you know, around that, people probably want their money to be used in a better way rather than paying for a funeral. I think you hear that at times,
you do
don't
hear
you?
that a lot. But then you think, on the flip side of that, you hear families saying that, "I don't want any of your money.
Yeah.
We want you to spend it whilst you're alive, or we're going to use some of it to celebrate your life at the point where you've passed away."
Yeah.
So yeah, there's definitely a flip side to everything.
Yeah.
And I mean, the cost of an average funeral nowadays, I guess you're probably looking somewhere between, for a cremation, somewhere between sort of £4,000 and £5,000. Yeah. Whereas if you were going for a direct cremation, you're probably looking under 2,000.
Yeah.
It's just being mindful of how do you want to celebrate that person, and is there a cost implication to it, or is there something that we can do that's not going to cost us something, or can we adapt sort of this mid ground where it's somewhere between a direct and a traditional funeral? But we'll talk about that type of service in another episode.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, and as we say, these are areas where we can do as much or as little, can't we? You know, your funeral director can have a service that is bespoke to yourself. You know, you don't have to have all the whistles and bells. And, you know, those that have a direct, we've had people that have had a direct and then we've maybe just organised a wake for them, or, you know, or they've just had the direct and they've said, you know, at a later point, we're going to hold something for the family. You know, it's about giving people choices, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think we saw that a lot during COVID, where people were minimal amount of people attending, and then people were saying, well, we'll have something when restrictions are lifted. Yeah. Now that's kind of worked against them, because all these people that probably thought with the best intentions that we're going to do that, and their mindset is that that's how we're going to, in the future, celebrate that person, have not got round to it. No. And other things have happened, and they don't want to go back over that,
well, they've
drawing all
on.
that emotion up. Yeah, and they think they've got that closure. Yeah. So it's really, really tricky. Yeah. In that context. Yeah. So who do you think are the type of people that more want to book this type of service? Is there a specific person in the community that you felt would want to book it, or is it just the person who's potentially building up to their own demise? Yeah. Think they're the one that's planted the seed with the family?
I think there's a mixture, to be honest. I don't think there is just one sort of demographic of person, because I know some people that I've known, and, you know, we've found out that it's going to be a direct. I've been probably a little surprised, you know, because you think, wow, you know, they've had a lot of friends, you know, they've maybe got a big family, and, you know, all of a sudden it's, you know, there's going to be a funeral service, and literally it's like saying, but you're not invited. And I know I felt lost with that, because then it's like, well, how can I pay my respects? So I don't think there is. I think as I say, I've been surprised as well, but, you know, that's the wishes of whoever has decided on that. But yeah, I wouldn't say there is. Would you?
No,
say there is
I can't categorise anybody.
Yeah.
No, it does surprise you. Some people you think that you've maybe known for decades. Yeah. Why have they come up with this option when you think, there must be hundreds of people that you know and would want to come and
Yeah.
pay the respects or celebrate you that have chosen that path.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I think it's sad as well, like in the previous episode where we spoke with Penny Pringle, and she mentioned, about funeral wakes and how when people do get together, you learn so much more, and when it's a service, you learn so much more about that person and the content that has been put into that service. I don't think there's many times you sort of walk away from a funeral not thinking, I didn't know that about that person. So it brings all that into it as well, doesn't it? And, at a wake afterwards, everybody, that attends that, you get to see people you've never seen for years. And it's that, sadly, in a sense, it's the deceased and their family that have brought you all back together. And all that is missing, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. Definitely.
So, what's included in a direct cremation? We thought we'd talk about this, didn't we? So, first of all, we start with the collection of the deceased. So, whether it's coming from a hospital, the care home, the hospice, their house. And then, obviously, it will include the cremation fees for the local authority or for whichever crematorium that you'll be going to, as well as the paperwork. It includes the simple coffin and also the transport to the crematorium. And I think this is where it's interesting again with us, because as a funeral home we've discussed around, even though somebody's having a direct cremation, we will always use the hearse.
Yeah, I just think it's a given that we should still always use the hearse.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, we need to take a vehicle out
to
transport that person. Why would you not take the vehicle that's adapted to do that? And that person is still getting the dignity they deserve in being transported in that way.
Yeah.
I mean, if somebody's specific to us and say they don't want the hearse,
absolutely,
that's different.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we'll obviously adapt that and we'll change the vehicle, but we just feel for ourselves that we need to give that bit back.
Yeah, definitely. And also included would be the ashes returned to the family, or they'd be scattered in a garden of remembrance or wherever the wishes of that loved one would be. And then these are areas again where we've looked at, isn't it, in terms of what a direct cremation constitutes and what other funeral directors are doing and what we wanted to do. It's like a lot of direct funerals, it's no viewings, isn't it? That's stipulated.
Yeah.
That you cannot come in and see your loved one, and that really didn't sit right with us, did it?
No, I mean, even to the extremes where some funeral directors, as part of their package, it's no dressing.
Yeah.
So it's literally, you are literally picked up and put inside that receptacle that we call a coffin, and then the lid is closed. There's no preparation. You've not dressed that person in a different way. You've not laid them out properly, lined the coffin even sometimes. We hear some terrible horror stories, but that's what they offer.
Yeah.
All we're saying to people is, if you are considering this,
Yeah.
just ask the questions. See exactly what you're getting for your money at the end of the day, because there is a marked difference.
And I don't understand, I mean, being very human, and having a funeral home and a business, that, if you were doing a direct cremation for somebody and somebody said, well, I really, what if, say, the daughter said, I really want to see my dad, how can you say no?
I don't think you can. And then how do you then change it? So, well, I'm sorry, but all you've paid for is a direct funeral.
Yeah.
So you don't get these sorts of things. And I ain't got the heart to say that to somebody.
No, me neither.
Yeah.
No.
So we choose to just do it a little bit differently to some. Yeah.
Yeah. And as we've said, there is no ceremony because, as you go to the crematorium, that is what they stipulate, don't they, the local authority, that there is no ceremony. But as I say, we will talk about other direct cremations where you can have other little bits in another episode, won't we?
Yeah,
in terms of other choices. Yeah. And like we've said, that no mourners are present, are they?
No. It's one of them things that the crematoriums especially, they won't let you in the building.
No.
So because they're doing this discounted service and it's usually early in the morning, then they won't want everybody coming in. Well, they won't allow it anyway.
Yeah.
What does happen occasionally is, at the end of the day, most of these places are public places. So occasionally we've had people turn up at the crematorium on the day and time because they know when it's going to be happening. and just stand in the car park and witness them being carried into the crematorium, which I can't say I encourage, but if that's what you feel you need to do, then yeah, I would say do that.
Yeah.
So, just a couple of emotional, cultural questions then. Do you think removing the ceremony and the tradition of the ceremony kind of undermines the grieving process?
I think as humans we're all very different, aren't we? We all grieve in different ways, and we all have different thoughts on how, when we've lost people and how we grieve. So I think that's really difficult. Personally for me, I think yes, it does have an effect. But I'm sure there are people out there that are very happy that, they don't need that. And I think that's where we've got to be very honest that as long as everybody's got the choices, then, that's up to them, isn't it? But personally, I do feel very sad around a direct cremation. And I would, I would dread to think either of my parents would want that. And I think I would look to try and help them change their minds, or certainly have some big discussions if that was the case. And I'm thinking about, my own children having to witness my parents' funerals and things. It's not just about, what they want or what I would want. So, there's conversations to be had. I mean, what do you think?
I mean, I've been doing this 30 odd years now. I'm pro funeral service of some sort.
Yeah.
I'm not against the direct element of it, but I do think you still need to take yourself away and get together with people and do something, whether that's before, after, or during.
Yeah.
You need to do some form of celebration. Otherwise, your mind is just going to play tricks on you, and it will come back to bite you at the worst point in your life.
Yeah.
Building on from this, do you think it's a generational thing? The way people look at this, the older generation versus the younger generation.
It's funny you say that, because I was just thinking about that, because would you ever dream of having a direct cremation for somebody young?
Yeah, and it's
And
very rare.
Yeah,
isn't it? Yeah,
and I was just thinking about that, So are we saying it's because it's an older person that's had a life and they've lived it? Is that the thinking? I don't know. Really. But yeah, I can't imagine doing a funeral service as a direct for somebody young.
I think, especially when it's an elderly person and they've chosen themselves, we've touched on it already, they think they're doing the family a favour.
Yeah.
And they don't want them to have to go through all the fuss. They've lived their, like you say, their life. But flip that over to if it was that older person and it was their child, whether it be a young child or adult child, I can't think for 1 minute that parent would want to have a direct service for their child in that. So it's funny, isn't it, that they would want for themselves to save all the hassle, if you want to call it that.
Yeah.
But if it was a younger person in their family, then I just don't think they would do that. They would want to celebrate and mourn in a traditional way.
Yeah, well, it becomes a very much, even though it's a young person, a celebration of that person's life, even though it's maybe ended shortly. It's a celebration, and for their friends to come along. I mean, when we've had young people that have passed away, I mean, wherever that has been conducted, whether it's a church or the crematorium, absolutely packed with people.
Yeah.
So I can't imagine those funerals to be done as directs.
No. Okay, so if you were going down this route of direct cremation, would you give any sort of hints or tips to people if they were choosing to do this, what they should do, anything they should be looking out for?
I would certainly stick with a local funeral director. And, I'm not just saying that because we are local funeral directors. Whether it's a national one or an independent, look at your local funeral directors, because you can have conversations with them. You can talk to them around, whether you're able to view, if they want to view their loved one. And I think that's really important. And, even afterwards, when you've collected the ashes, It's around what you're going to do with those ashes. Your funeral director can talk you through all that side of, what happens with the ashes, what you want to do, and anything else that you want to be guided by. I just think keeping it local does help people with maybe when they're going through this process, you do have lots of questions. There are things you want to talk to people about. And, and within our funeral home, as I'm sure it is in a lot of others, it's about just having conversations with people. People can become very lonely once they've lost somebody. We often have family members in the funeral home. We're making cups of tea. We're talking about what they've been doing on, the days, leading up to the funeral, or they come in after the funeral. So it's not just around the funeral process, it's helping and guiding them through the worst and darkest days of their lives, isn't it, for however long it takes. Whereas if you're not using somebody local, who are you talking to?
This is true. So, say for instance, you find out your relative who's now passed away has purchased one of these sort of plans with a firm that's from out of town. What suggestions would you... Well, not suggestions, that's the wrong choice of words. What would you say to them about how they, number one, either carry on with that, or number two, look at other options? Because they really need to think about themselves. I understand that they'll want to honour what the person who's taken out this plan has originally wanted.
Yeah.
But they do need to think about themselves as well. Is there anything they can do at that point to change that?
Yeah, there's always a way, isn't there? And we've seen that with people that have taken out a funeral plan that hasn't been local, and we've had discussions with them, given them the options. I think a lot of the time, if they've seen something on the TV, or they've, somebody's come along and sold them a direct cremation, they maybe haven't looked at all the small print of how it works. We've had numerous occasions, haven't we, where we've held somebody within our funeral home that is going for a direct cremation elsewhere, and when the family's turned up with the clothes and they've said, right, and can we see mum? And sadly, because that contract is not with us, that is where it becomes difficult. But the small writing hasn't been read in terms of they won't be dressed in their clothes and there is no viewing. And I think that's where it maybe shocks the family members. They've probably found out that mum's obviously decided to take out this direct cremation but not read all the different information on it, so they're assuming it's going to be very much like a local funeral director dealing with everything, whereas we are not allowed because it's not our contract. We're just holding that deceased until they're collected, and I think that's where we've had to maybe sometimes sort of pick up the pieces with these families, or sit with them and inform them of actually how this would work if they continued with it, because they're not understanding what they're actually going to be involved in.
Yeah.
There are those that seem totally aware, which is absolutely fine if that's the choice they've made. But I think it's just where those that haven't, and I think we see more of those that don't realise how it works. And that's is quite sad, isn't it?
Yeah, I think the bit that sits with me that makes me uncomfortable is the fact that people are kind of misled into the fact that their loved one's been collected and taken to the location where they're going to be. But it may well be that they're in a funeral director or a hospital's mortuary, and they could be there for a number of weeks.
Yeah.
Not dressed, not prepared, just waiting at some point for them to be picked up. Yeah. And that just doesn't sit right with me. So that's why we choose to do things differently for direct.
Yeah, it is extremely sad, and it was a real eye-opener for us as we started to understand these other direct funeral companies, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And, that doesn't sit with our values and our ethos, really, does it?
No.
Yeah.
No, so I think the moral of this story is would encourage people to have conversations, either prior to somebody's demise or after they have. Just re-look at what you've got and what you've signed up for, and direct things are here to stay. It's just how you embrace it and how you deal with it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's it for today, folks. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Just Talk Funerals.
We really care about what you think. We'd love your feedback on the subjects raised today, or maybe you have a question you would like us to talk about in a future episode. You can contact us by emailing podcast@threadgoldfunerals.com.
If you'd like to know more about what we do and the services we offer, then please head to jasonthreadgoldfuneraldirector.com. Thank you for joining us today, and see you next time.